Stewie, good morning. I think it is morning outside in
It's
Melbourne.
well and truly.
Well and
Uh,
truly, how's it going?
yeah, really good, thanks. I'm quite excited to be on and looking forward to the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one I've earmarked and had on the list for a while. I'm just trying to develop my craft a little bit more on this whole podcast journey. Been a few months now, but I'm really enjoying it, and I think probably at the best place to put this in the greatest light possible. So very excited. Very, very, very excited. Quickly, I'm gonna start you off with how we met. So we met at a Golf Australia camp in between. I think it was in Perth. I think it was in Perth when you used to come over and kind of service all the athletes over there, high performance wise. And you caught my attention quickly just because you're a little bit different about outside of the box kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, perfect. Who's this guy? What can he help me with? You were right into shots to hole, and Aimpoint was right on the start of the radar. I think that was back when the green books were a thing. Now we've got the Aimpoint Express. So yeah, would love to start with your first impressions of me. Let's start there.
It's like, who is this? Who is this guy? I'd heard of you. And the thing jogging my memory, I can remember because I'd come from Melbourne and it was cold. It was this bright sunny day out on the golf course there. Um, what's the name of the course? It was Richie's place.
Yeah, Melville Glades. That would be Melville
Yeah,
Glades.
I can
Yeah.
visualize the putting green at the front and
Yeah.
the brick walkway. The thing that struck with me were the questions that you had asked me.
Okay.
Um, because a lot of the times in the space that I'm sitting with for developing players, the question around, well, how well do you know your game? And have you thought about using some data to help you become more proficient? Or what do you do to green read? Or in general, what are you doing to get better? You get quite bland answers. I just like to be more consistent. You know, I think I need to work on my swing, but you grilled me. It was awesome. Like you were really not just seeking clarification, but just really asked on the point, challenging questions. And sometimes I can give an answer and I'm waiting for a response to be challenged or to engage in a conversation. And most of the time, like 20 times out of 21, it's just accepted. But we had just a really great conversation, and I just made a little note in my head that it was really fun. And I was looking forward to the next session and looking forward to seeing where that little bit of information that we went through, just looking forward to where you would take it. And it's been fun watching it ever since.
Yeah, well, I hope I didn't grill you too hard. I kind of think, well, maybe when I was 16, 17, 18, I hope I wasn't grilling you too hard. But I do remember thinking we sat down for a shots to hole. I think we should expand on shots to hole. It's a program you created that we could go down this for ages, but we'll start with how I got to understand shots to hole. It's a stats program where it kind of it kind of redefines where you are with all sorts of percentages and what the biggest game changes you can be. So before strokes gain stuff, before I think it's demand now, but you guys were like the start. I would love to start how that became a thing for you, Stu, because yeah, I think you nailed it from the get go.
Well, it's really interesting. I was a failed, I say loosely, tour player. I think I achieved a ranking in the top 700 or 800 in the world professionally. I played in things like the Australian Open and PGA. The secondary tour in Australia, I think I had in my first year maybe 4 or 5 top 10 to 15, not inside 8 or 9, but like 10 to 15 finishes.
Mm-hmm.
Played a couple of events on the Challenge Tour, played secondary or third tier stuff in Europe, a little bit in Asia for 3 or 4 years. And I ended up with an injury in my back and some stress fractures in shoulders. And I couldn't play golf. I had $50,000 owing on credit cards. And I think, I always kept data on my game, the normal stuff, greens and reg, putting. But what struck me was, it was maybe like 20 over par for the first 3 or 4 events. And for the remainder of the year, I was maybe 130 or 140 under par and still made a massive loss. And
Mm-hmm.
all of my coaching was around technical development, and my whole ethos and frankly, my self-worth as a person was related to whether I hit the ball nicely or not. And I believed if I hit targets, hit the fairway, hit the green, then I would be a world-class player. And upon getting injured, I was just mucking around. I had spreadsheets and I just sorted my score. I sorted all the rounds I had for the year by greens in reg.
Mm-hmm.
And my best scores came when I hit 12, 13 or 14 greens. And if I hit 15 or above, my score wasn't quite as good. And like, it's confronting because everything that I did, my swing, my practice was about hit the fairway, hit the green. And, this is obviously at the back end when I was coming through, we had Persimmon Woods and Blada Balls, but we were Titanium Woods had probably just come out. The Pro V1 came out in my first year on tour. So it sort of shows my age in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I'm injured. I was lucky enough to get a coaching role at Sandhurst, which was to become the home of the PGA. And I was very hopeful that if I had that role, that might lead to some other opportunities at the PGA in-house, which as a PGA member is a good thing. And that did eventuate. But I wasn't allowed to practice, but I was allowed to chip and I was allowed to putt. So I'd putt and I'd just play little games, and I was always competitive with myself. So I'd write down my scores, and then I'd be able to chip, but I couldn't play golf, so I couldn't get a score. So what I started doing was taking the chipping game and putting it with the putting game and creating a score. And then I started noticing some days I would chip closer and other days I wouldn't. And if I played with that data, I could work out a hypothetical. If I chipped it like this and putted like that, my score would be X. But if I putted like I did that day, my score would be better or my score would be worse. And that was the beginning of the slider bars that you would have used for our analysis tool on Shots to Hole. A bit after that, I'm coaching at Sandhurst, and my now business partner, Paul Mesner, came for a golf lesson, and he had retired at the age of mid-30s from working in banks and IT, database-centric programming, and had decided to pursue his dream of becoming a golf pro, having done his career thing. And he came for a lesson, and the normal lessons like, oh, what do you need to work on? And he couldn't answer it. He sort of went blank, and it's like, and we spoke maybe a week after, and it's like, I couldn't answer that question. I just thought you're going to tell me what I needed to do. And it's like, well, no, this is a two-way thing, a conversation, and where are you at and what are your goals, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, but I started keeping some stats for you. It was just the normal stuff. Then I showed him what I was working on, and he decided to program it. And he, like, that programming he's done, it's just a beast of a thing. There's so much in it, and it's so robust. Fast forward to today. So that's in the mid 2006, 2007, maybe just before that period. And we've got well upwards of 20 million shots in the database now, primarily from national squad players and tour pros, or national, like development juniors. Like I think the average score is a bit under 74. So it's such an amazing log of shots to catalog. So it just sort of grew from there. We added feature after feature. We shared it with different coaches, and they asked for, can we do this and can we do that? And it was like, it's a beast of a, it's like, it was Paul's life programming it for a couple of years. And I couldn't imagine if we were setting up initially as a business, like the feasibility of what we did versus the number of users. But it was a passion project, and it's proved to be a lot of fun. And the opportunities it's given me has been amazing.
Yeah, it's an amazing program. I think when the first time I was getting on it, just thinking, all right, just click everything in. You just write down I remember playing amateur events, and you step it out, and everyone was thinking, what are you doing? I'm like, it's 16 feet. I'm just trying to figure out, okay, it's exactly that. And then in my mind, when I'm putting, I'm thinking, all right, we'll get into Aimpoint, but I'm like, all right, it's 2 outside the right, and I've got this much chance of making the putt because that's tour average, and I'm feeling good today. So you're already realistically, gauging what all these numbers in your head. And I'm already a numbers guy. I love fantasy sports. That's one passion I have that I don't talk about enough. I really analyze the numbers. I'm big on not even really knowing this is like AFL or NFL or NBA. I'm not too sure who the player is, but I know what he does. And that's kind of, I think that's, you leave the emotion out of it. I think numbers never lie. And I'm really interested to talk about stuff like that with, I think golf, we're just kind of touching the surface. That you said you guys started in 06, you're 14, 15 years in there now. And I'm sure you've seen wavelengths of how far you guys have started and where you are now, and you're saying you're so tailored to a high performance to the high performance player. Are there tendencies? I remember back then, it's like for me it was like anywhere from 100 to 150. It was if you can get it inside a certain ratio. That's kind of the wording I use kind of now, and kind of I think of my big circle around wherever the pin is. If that's in a bunker or thing, it's kind of like, all right, that's where I'm trying to hit it into. Would love to expand on that.
I think that there's so many facets there, Brady. On the one hand, with the absolute highest level players that I've had the privilege to consult to and talk about with their games, and think about Golf Australia's link to Houston and Kevin Kirk and some of the players that he's worked with, and sitting down with, in this case, a major winner or guys that are winning on the US Tour. And the one thing that becomes really evident is everyone feels self-conscious about their games. And the question really is, are you putting attention on things that make you feel bad, like I'm not hitting it just the right way, or are you really aware of the levers that you have that you can pull on and manipulate to improve your score? And very rarely are people really concerned about the things that are most important to their score, but they're the ones that are most important to them. It's attached to their self-image, it's attached to how well, generally it's around ball striking. And if we can move the focus from, in actual fact, even though you felt not great about those skills, they may be better, they may be worse, but it's only cost you 0.4 of a shot. However, are you aware that your short game, say 20 to 40 yards, and maybe you're putting from 5 to 15 feet dropped off, and that's costing you maybe a shot to a shot and a half. So that's 6 shots a tournament. At the highest level, the ramifications of that are really huge. Thereafter, where I think the data is the most interesting, it's actually in the questions that, because I'm also a coach, I still view myself as a player and a coach, but the questions that we get to then have and the discussion points that come up are different to in a normal lesson. And I think that's where a lot of the magic lies. It's just actually taking the raw emotion out of it. And in the case of you and I, or that kind of relationship, I'm far enough removed. Like I know you a little bit, but I'm not there on your day-to-days. And I'm not like I'm invested. I want to see you do well, but the emotion of the event or the emotion of the relationship, I'm just saying these are the facts. Are you aware that your driving is really, really good? And a lot of the times, a player might be concerned because they perceive to hit the ball not far enough, especially in this day and age. But you can actually turn around and say, well, your driving distance is okay, but because you hit it so accurately, I actually view your driving as a weapon, and you can really position your angles well. And just because you don't have the 15 or 20 yards that player X has on top of what you do, that doesn't mean that your driving is not a weapon. And just changing someone's perception of that and backing it up with, well, because if you do that and follow it up with this and this, well, you're better than that guy that hits it longer, and you can play your way. This is how you're going to do it. And
there's this model like people are trying to strive towards now. It's more like I want to hit it 330 and I want to just hit every green. And, if I have a good day, I have 28, 29 putts, but it's like, that's not your game. Your game is to hit it a bit shorter. It may be for someone, but you have 25, 26 putts around and you get everything up and down, and that's your game. And there's so many, I guess there's a lot of players that fall into that. I'm kind of just trying to think about my own game here. And I think there's a point where that's enough with your driving. You're always trying to get a little bit better every year or your ball striking, but the real indicators that can really help you score, you've exhausted that category. I guess that's in layman's terms, but it's like I always think about 5 to 9 feet. It's like, all right, well, Bryson was pretty much 92% in the whole year from 10 feet and in. So crazy year with putting. Like you think, well, that's probably just no one's ever going to do that again. Someone might do it in 20 years, but there's something that lies in that as well.
Oh, and look at when Jason Day was number one and the insane amount of 3-footers he hold on end, or Tiger in his dominant years. Yeah, and Bryson, I think, is a really great case in point. Like he's obviously decided to go after distance, and that's the thing that gets the attention. But yeah, how's that putting stat? 92%. Like that's off the charts. And then you get to like a US Open at Winged Foot, and he's hit what 30% just over fairways and won the US Open, and they're going, well, driving distance doesn't matter, but it's interesting in the USGA's quest to keep 280 as a winning score has made it actually took away, those narrow fairways took away the importance of driving accuracy because the field average was under 50%. So if you're playing out of the rough, then the only real advantage is to have more loft. So the whole model of that tournament structure saying, when Ben Hogan was playing, everyone was hitting it at the distance they were. Being in the fairway is a significant advantage compared to being in the rough. But if the entire field is hitting mid 40% fairways, well, there is no real advantage being in the fairway because the majority of shots are in the rough. And I think that course from history has the lowest driving accuracy consistently for the winners because it's just a brutal course.
Just looked like a bear. Like, honestly, I remember watching it thinking, well, everyone's hitting in the rough. He's just 50 yards up there closer. So he's got a 9-iron, you've got a 6-iron, you're probably laying a 6-iron up out of the rough because it's not coming out of there.
And then you read the media and the hype around how important driving distance is, and it is significant. However, in that event, driving accuracy was basically deemed obsolete because there wasn't much of it happening. In a different event and across the season, driving accuracy is important. And what we see in our data is you need to be maybe, if you're 100 yards in the rough, we're seeing similar proximities from maybe 160 in the fairway. So it's about a 60-yard differential to get a benefit. Well, and if we're chasing 10 yards, well, and again, it's case by case and it's course by course. But, and things like, and with interest, I was listening to your podcast with Curtis talking about his win on Corn Ferry and that particular course because of the obscure green shapes. Sometimes left rough was better to get to a particular pin. So it's never a hard and fast rule. There's rules of thumb, but for different people in different circumstances, like my rules are going to be different to yours. And that's the beauty of this. It's not about we all have to adhere to a model. It's how can you, in this moment, under pressure, come up with the best strategy and execute. And if we can help you to train better, if we can help you to build those building blocks that are the foundation of your score, that give you a better offense and better defense and all those sorts of terms. If by having a discussion with someone like me or by yourself and working in a way that helps, then when all it really matters is that when you're under the most intense pressure, whether it's to win a tournament, to make a cut, to qualify for something, when it comes down to it, can you execute? And stats is one piece of that.
Yeah, well, it kind of backs up your confidence in the practice and everything you've done over the years. I think, just seeing you over the years we've seen each other is so many times I get on a tee and you think, oh, it's probably not driver. It's a tough driving hole. And then you think, I'm a great driver of the golf ball. I hit this. This is my best club. Get up there and hit it. And it's funny. I played the longest day the other day, 72 holes in a day, and I could barely walk. I still am struggling now. Like I'm obviously been locked down in Melbourne and this whole thing. I'm just getting my feet wet again playing golf. But under the most exhausted state I've probably ever been in, I can still hit drivers straight. And that's proved something to me that you can do it. Like you can still, like it's all there to do. You haven't been playing much. You know that's your best club. Go out there and hit it. Back yourself in. But yeah, the tools of stats, doing the practice to back it up, and just years of doing it. That's kind of, I think once you get to a certain level, you need to look at other stuff. That's as good as your driving is going to get. You're obviously trying to keep getting better with everything so you don't fall back or lose strength or anything like that. But yeah, it's driving, and I guess ball striking is sexy. That's kind of something I've seen over the years. And, there's been a real shift to, putting's where you score still. It's still, everyone's great putters. We need to keep pushing into that. And one tool you also do is the whole Aimpoint thing. We started before talking about the books. I asked for one the other day and I got one, and we could look back on. I remember using them thinking, this is just like, what do you mean? This is like magic. It's 3 inches
Yeah.
outside the right, and it goes in. Like, what do you mean? I just need to hit a putt there, and everything's a straight putt. And yeah, I'd love to hear how you started going. Obviously, it's kind of taps into your statistical mind, but we would love to start there as well.
So at the time, going back to the original story, I was teaching at Sandhurst, and then an opportunity came up to move to the PGA. So I was the manager of our PGA Learning Centre. So I was like the in-house pro for the PGA. We did programs, education programs on how to teach golf in China, anything around golf coaching within the academy and that sort of stuff. I was pretty heavily involved in. And one of my really good friends, Steve Giuliano, who's now, we went through our time together. He's now based up in Malaysia and services a lot of Asia. He met Mark Sweeney, who was the creator of Aimpoint, at the PGA trade show, and he's come back and says, Stuart, you've got to see this stuff. And he tried to describe it, and it's like, yeah, that sounds interesting. Fast forward a month or two later, we'd arranged for Mark to come out, and I got a bunch of students together, and he took us through what was the Aimpoint at the time, so using the chart. And firstly, and I've got to know Mark pretty well over the journey, and he's a really interesting guy. Like, on the one hand, he's so analytical and wrote all the code that put down that software where the line would be overlaid on a telecast, and as the camera panned in and panned out, it would stay true, and did all of the maths around how to make that work, and then coded it. So think about that as a brain. And then having watched him work with some high-level players, he's not a trained golf coach, but he's one of the most intuitive, natural, implicit coaches I've ever seen. I love watching him coach and always walk away feeling like I've learned how to interact with my clients and students better. So a really, really interesting guy, like very different aspects of his mind that are there. So fast forward to the day, and we're going through all these various activities, and it just blew me away. Not the actual read component, but the predictability. Like I'm there I played on tour, although poorly. I played golf for a long time. What can this guy teach me about green reading, really? And realistically, an awful lot. The myths of where the ball goes, or I think Richard said it really well in an earlier podcast with you, like, that ball just broke uphill. Well, we know a ball can't break uphill physically, but my perception of what I saw, and then watching the whole Aimpoint thing evolve has been interesting. So with one of my favorite clients, he's a podiatrist. He's actually the person that fixed my back after all of this. We went out afterwards and played 9 holes, and he's a smart guy. You need a bit of mental energy to be able to do that original chart stuff. It was, if you like maths, it was great. Like, and it gave, the thing I love about Aimpoint is it gives you a series of tools to solve a problem. So we went out and played 9 holes straight after, and what we did was we'd do our normal read, and I'd mark where my read was. Then we go through the Aimpoint read, and I remember this, in that 9 holes, there was 2 8-footers. And I've done my read, and I've had it say like outside left. And I've done the Aimpoint thing, it's got outside right. And I'm saying, this stuff doesn't work, except they went in, and my ones were on the wrong side of the hole. And I struggled with it, like learning, like I just worked through it. But then when I bought a digital level, and once I could calibrate myself, because you can reverse engineer the read and you can see where the mistake is. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then got really heavily involved in it and helped. I think when Express first came out, which was the one without the book, that first real series of Express clinics delivered to the public was with Mark and I in Australia. And I still got them sitting in my cupboard here. Before that, I bought like 200 books for the year because I was seeing 200 to 400 people a year in Aimpoint. Never used them. We never went back. And I think the gift of Aimpoint, it's 2 things. For me, once I could do it with competency, which didn't take that long, especially with Express, it was just having certainty. I'm going to go here. Instead of sort of getting over the ball, I think it's a bit outside right or a bit side out left. It's like, it was just the decision made. And what I found was when I was practicing my putting as a tour player, after like 15 minutes, I was just angry. It was mechanical, I'd miss. I could practice putting all day. The flow of the routine, the way that I engage with it, the way I can actually visualize the putt now, it's so much different. And my attitude to putting is so different to when I was on tour. I really didn't like putting practice. It was so far removed from the real thing for me.
It's very interesting. You know, you talk about the read and all that sorts of stuff. As a player, we both are, and like I'll always see myself as a player, like golf guy. But it's you do your read. I think this is prior to Aimpoint. You do your read. You've got a feeling. Say it's a cup outside left, and then you look around both sides, and then obviously your eyes are seeing different slopes in the background, and you're thinking, well, maybe it's not. It looks the other way from the other side, and so many people are in that, and you're already bringing a bit of doubt as you're standing behind it, and then you line the ball up, you get over the ball, and then you do your last couple of looks, and then you're doubting yourself. You think it's definitely not outside. It's not a cup outside left, and then there's this sense of like manipulation in your stroke, and then that builds a pattern over years of an uncertain read. And I always in my mind, it's like with the best putts you hit when you hit it with total confidence. And I think Aimpoint is perfect for that, backing up the true read, and then you've got to calibrate it. That's another side of as well. You know, you talk about the digital level. You've got to be able to do that every day is like a daily thing that people do. You know, when they're on tour, and they really stay on top of that stuff because it's so important. I still remember the first couple of times you had the digital level. You were saying at your house, you know, this is obviously 1%, and there's a hill out the back that's 4%, and you know, you don't play any more than four generally. I think that's a rule with professional golf. It's if it gets too quick and it's on a four, it gets a bit dicey with if it's any breeze or
Yeah,
anything. But
maybe off a shoulder, like on a longer putt where you've got to traverse something, you'll get bigger ones. But you know, on the holdable putts,
yes,
unlikely.
very, very unlikely. But you know, you play. This is when I was learning it, and you're playing amateur events, and you're thinking, "Geez, I'm sure this is on a 6% slope." And you know, they're obviously dicey pins. They're trying to keep the scoring low, and you know, you play at these home courses, and they think this pin will catch the guy today. You know, this is the Sunday pin, and they've got it in the wrong spot. But it's yeah, it's definitely backs up the true read, but you've got to calibrate, you know, that 4% on your back slope. It's a bit different living in an apartment. I'll have to find some kind of slope, what's going on here. But how
So
important is the digital level?
grab grab some books. Like this is my mouse. Obviously, I'm not going to stand on that. But you can actually grab books and tilt them up or tilt them down, and you can make it with wood. You can jig up
Oh,
something and just put it along your wall at home, and it's right there. You stand on them every day.
wow.
Hopefully, this is going to the northern hemisphere, and people are hopefully not locked down like we were. But
Mm,
you can do all sorts of stuff at home. So I think the digital level for me, it was the tool that gave me confidence.
mm,
Yes, I don't need to doubt that. I can trust my feels, and it's
mhm,
so interesting as you do it more and more. There's all these cross correlations to what you feel in your body. So initially, we sort of teach, can you feel more pressure or less pressure in your feet? But there's all these other things going on in your torso and how it moves off center or up and down your leg, and it becomes so obvious once you get into it that you know you can feel halves and quarters really easily. But like anything else, it's something that you need to make automatic, and the only way you do that is with consistent regular practice. It's no different to making sure your grip is good. It's no different to working on a good pre-shot routine or working on decision making. Like how often do we practice decision making when we're practicing? And the essence of aim point is if you're using that on the putting green when you're practicing your decision making routine, which leads into the visualization. And if you just did it doing your drills pretty quickly, you've got it under control.
yeah, decision making. That's a big one, huge one. That definitely leads in a high performance because better players make better decisions consistently over time. They don't make that big number. They know they play position, all these sorts of stuff. But it's yeah, big subject, high performance, and you know you've obviously been around it a while now. How much have you enjoyed it? What's the most thing that stood out to you that obviously you've got your shots to hole and your aim point stuff, but you see these players coming through now, and you think what is the biggest piece of value you can add to them as a coach, player, and mentor, I guess.
I think if I'm doing my job really well, I'm using as few words as possible, and I want the words and the message that I'm conveying, I want it to hold weight.
Mm,
I'm not saying this because I want to be your friend. I'm
Mm.
not saying this to be mean. I'm saying it because it's true.
Mm.
And the biggest thing that I think I can help a really talented or developing player is with the truth. Are you aware that you're quite good at this? Give yourself a break. Or alternatively, you might think because you're the best player at your club or even in the state at this, that this is a real strength of yours. But in reality, for where you're wanting to go, this still needs some work. And that can be really confronting, not just for the player, but for the coach who's working with their player. And often for home coaches, like I think Bish is a bit of exception because he had such good players and still does coming through. But very often if you're coming from a rural area, this is the best player that coach has ever worked with. So to be delivered information, and hopefully it's done really constructively. It's not, oh, you're not good at this. It's like, okay, you're going really well here, but we need to get you to there. And let's say it's proximity from 100 to 140 yards, and we're looking for a 3, 4, 5 yard improvement. Does that mean that we need to make your swing better? Well, no, maybe we just need to pick better targets. Maybe we need to go out with a TrackMan or at least a laser and really measure how far you hit the ball, and let's hit some fades and hit some draws and get a better understanding of what your yardages are. From that, you get the information to make better targets. So this pathway forward, the number creates the question. And now what does improvement look like? Is it that your proximity is bad because you actually have missed the fairway on holes that are 300 to 350 yards? You try to be too aggressive off the tee, and as a consequence, you're taking away birdie opportunities and actually replacing them with really tough pars or bogeys at a large percentage of the time. And a player will come back and report after the fact, I didn't hit it very good. It's like, well, but were you actually in the headspace to play well? Were you playing from the best positions? And, did you hit driver off that tee because you missed a birdie putt on the last or had a soft mistake and you tried to regain that shot that's never coming back? So while we're looking for a numbers perspective, I think if in that role of I'm doing my job really, really well, it's the honesty and the sincerity. But it's a hard discussion sometimes, but trying to do it in a constructive way.
Is it one that needs to be aligned via the coach, or is it just it's a full team kind of stuff? I'm just trying to think with Bish, Craig, and all the stuff. He's very real. There's no sugarcoating with him. It's this because of this. And I've been so thankful for that because it's helped my progress as a person, one, but two, as a golfer. But I think those real conversations and surrounding yourself with people that I think that's the most interesting part, because you think, well, I've always done it this way. And it really gets you thinking. I think as a teenager, you kind of you're on this cloud nine. I'm the best player in my club, and you're kind of floating around and you think, oh, I'm the best in the state. And then you start getting exposed to the best people in the country. Like that was for me, you kind of see Cameron Smith and you see Daniel Nisbet and all these guys kind of floating through, and you think, well, these guys are really, really good. And then you go back and you have your summer and you think, well, I need to put it together and think, how can I get a little bit better? And how is, as a teenager growing, we're obviously dealing with all hormones and all these things, and you're not going to get it till you, most of the time, till you're 23, 24, 25, even, people get it later in life. And this real maturity into being honest with yourself and listening to people that are doing the same for you, that must be tough as a coach, I think.
Well, and I think too, like golf is really unique in that it's very much an individual sport. And while there are high performance programs which are helping to connect high level athletes with good practitioners, it's, I think, different to being in a cricket, a football, a rugby, a soccer club. And the culture that, if you go to a good club, of how the older players just lead by example. This is how to train. This is what is expected. And, the absolute prodigies, almost never get a chance. This is probably inaccurate. I'm speaking out of school here. You could probably answer it better, but in many cases may not get the chance really to grow up because they go from being a prodigy, like the best of the best, and they get through onto the main tour. They have success fairly quickly. Some of them, some others take they're on and off, but they ultimately get there. and they get surrounded by these people that haven't grown up with them. They might have their interests at heart because they're representing them in the form of agents and other things, but they're not their long-term friends that have the same values that they've grown up with, and their perspective changes a little bit. So for someone like me, we're talking about maturity and decision making. I think a lot of really good players are inherently stubborn. And as a compliment, I'm thinking straight away someone like Lucas Herbert, who's really gone on and done it his way, and maybe didn't quite fit into that high performance structure, but he ended up putting his own team around him and has achieved things really, really well his way. Curtis and you aren't dissimilar. It's the ones that are really good will have their team, and you as someone who, as I was outside of that team. I'm there trying to support and help. And while I was notionally representing Golf Australia, my focus is, well, what can I do, and what evidence can I provide for someone like you and Bish that might make a difference? And if the player, if I have their respect and they see that I'm coming from a place of honesty and truth and general interest in you as a person and general interest in you as a player, then that message via the player might get back to the home coach. Sometimes the home coach is there, and I think they're the best discussions. And if the small insights that I provide might shape the training environment, might shape where the focus of both the player and the coach, and we're talking about talented people in their own right in both fields, if there's buy-in across the board and there's consistent reporting back, either via me or via whatever platform you're using, and not that training has to be goal-based all the time, but if you can keep track of, like a business, a couple of key areas, and you can see that either your weapons are getting bigger or the areas that you could improve are now getting towards world class, I think that's a really powerful outcome. And the key in my role was talking with various stakeholders and to get whatever level of buy-in that the player and the home coach wanted. As long as there was something, and you don't get it with everyone, but for all the ones that got really good and continue to get good, there is a buy-in around whether it's this platform or another one. There's evidence-based around, am I getting better? Am I working on the right things? Because you're talking about really, really good individuals, and if you're focusing on the wrong things, it just makes it harder than it needs to be. So we can simplify that, then we're on the right track.
Yeah, time conscious. You're not wasting time on stuff. But yeah, you brought up a lot of good points about. I just want to quickly stop on like the alternate universe or path of a elite golfer. It's so different to, if you base yourself off, your mates that you grow up as a teenager, you go through high school together, and you see where they end up, and you're living this different life. You might get through on a bigger tour and your life is perfect, but there's so many people that fall off it because it's such a niche trying to get into it. You can still be really good, and then if you fall off it, you're stuck in limbo for a bit. It feels like you kind of like,
it's brutal.
It is brutal. It can be very, very brutal, but are we preparing ourselves for this at 15 to 23 where, a lot of these programs are based as people? It's like, I see someone, for example, like Lucas Michelle, and I've had him on and we've spoken about this, and I just love what he's done. I really, really, really love that. He stayed an amateur. He got a degree. He really grew as a person. He's mature now at, mid-20s, and he's got this huge opportunity in front of him now with a degree. He is the person he is now. He knows what he likes. And that kind of leads into, what you like at our age, well, I speak like 20, 25 onwards. You know what you like. You see Lucas, he knows what he likes, and he's stubborn or just really strong on the fact that I like this and I'm going to do it this way. And it's tough sometimes to make that when you're 15, 16, because most of the time you're still living at home with your parents and you're not too sure what's going on, and parents have a say, or you're trying to trust people, and you're still growing as a person. And I think that's an interesting question to, even put on the forefront of it.
Well, going back to your very first question about my memories of you at that age, and yes, you're matured and you've grown, and you've had far more life experience now than you did at that time, living within the shelter of your parents' home, and we're traveling a little bit. But that was one of the things, as I talked about before, you asked really good questions. You could see that there was more. You were already on that quest of defining who you were. You didn't quite know yet as strongly as you do now, but you were asking the questions to get that information. You could see you're on the journey. Someone like Lucas, like I'm fortunate to see Lucas when he's in town. He's a member at Metropolitan where I coach as well. So he's, in many respects, as a personality type, he reminds me a lot of someone like Jeff Ogilvy. He's thoughtful. He offers really great opinions. I would imagine he was a joy to interview because he can articulate what he's thinking about. He has strong views on things like architecture, how the game should be played, equipment, travel, systems, and he's very good at maths. He's very good on spreadsheets, so that makes him a good person in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. If he can nail Excel, it's done. He's done. He's right at the top.
But changing the subject slightly, I really believe the really, really good ones see the world differently. They just have a different insight. They process things in their way. And when I'm talking with emerging players or high-level players, I'm really interested in listening and trying to get to know them, because I've got all sorts of things that we could talk about, but what's going to be the most impactful? And if this person sees the world really differently, I don't want to have an argument with them saying that black is white and white is black, but I want to get to know what is it they need that can help them to get better, and then get an insight into their world. And who am I, who got ranked at whatever it was, 800, 750, to lecture, talk, to someone that's in the top 10 in the world? But what I can do is I can listen, I can give observations, I can understand what makes them tick, I can work with their coaching team around setting the right targets. And that's where the magic lies. And for me, the personal growth in doing that, of just watching, whether it's a 16-year-old or watching a 35-year-old or older, wherever they are on the spectrum, just the opportunity to learn from them is one of the greatest gifts that I get given with the opportunities I've been given. Like, you guys have no idea the joy that I get, and I think others in the program like me. But I learn so much on a daily basis and get challenged so much, and I love that fact. So that stubbornness and that opinionation and that understanding of what what this player wants, or in your case, saying I understand who I am more. Like my job as a coach is to ask really good questions, to listen, and very often, it's very easy with the stats to say this is good and that is bad, but if we ask the right question, we get all these other insights into who this person is and what they're striving for and what's important, and then I just respond to that. So, that question you asked, I've tried to answer from one perspective, but also from my perspective, how parallel the work that I do goes with the individuality and the growth of the person, and who, as they define who they are, both as a person and as a golfer. The stats are a byproduct to just open the door to that world.
Yeah, it's a big subject. I don't think there's one right answer, but I think one thing to keep in mind is it's such a big journey, and we just need to keep asking the questions and keep, just like if you look back on 10 years and you think nothing much has changed, or I haven't redefined what I'm doing, then you may need to adjust things. I think you just need to add another layer to it, peel back at it, just keep moving around and really making it more effective of what you're doing. And, as a role as a coach, you're being a great listener. I think a lot of players definitely have a lot of opinions. I just think of Curtis for stuff. The amount of times him and Bish have an argument about something about this and this, not an argument, more of a debate, whether this or this or that. But, you can't sometimes argue with a swing coach who is done it for 20 years and they know where that rabbit hole goes. I think as a player, when you're under the pressure and you think it may be one way or another, and you're standing there on the 72nd hole and you think, I'm not sure, that you can't be playing like that. You need to know where that leads to or where this goes. And that kind of leads us into, training schedules and stuff. I think that's just so underrated. I think just using our time well and what we actually do instead of beating balls all day, those days are gone. You know, we're trying to preserve this body, you know, trying to get the mind and everything aligned to what we're actually doing and actually being ready for, you know, it looks like the PGA of Australia is going to have a huge schedule, you know, starting the middle of January to the end of March.
I was going to ask that. You've got 3 weeks, right, to be ready?
Yeah, three weeks, and I'm coming off the back end of a full-time study load, and you know, the longest day ever, which is probably the best thing for my game to kind of see where I'm at scoring wise. I was going for 20 birdies, I only had 19. Lipped out on the last with like an eagle chip, but we won't get into that too much. But it's a yeah, 3 weeks to get ready for 2.5 months of golf flat out that will you know, pretty much set up your
Define
year. Yeah, to kind of define your year, which is interesting. It's like, what do you do? Like, how can you prepare for that? There's a few pro-ams kind of leading into these 4 events in Victoria. I've kind of snuck down to the peninsula and played the Legends and Rosebud, and just trying to get a bit earlier, trying to get away from those Monday, Tuesday, you know, the tournament week where
what can you actually get done when there's all those people there? Like, I'll have maybe a money game and just tune in. Like, what do you actually get done when the circus isn't out?
yeah, I'm a big advocate for kind of just go check in, play your 9 holes, 10, 11, 8, 18 holes with your mates, play a money game, get out of there. It's like I don't know, it's like a big catch up. I'm sure it will be. Lots of people haven't seen each other in a year. It's going to be just a big social environment. But at the end of the day, it's your career. It's something you know, I'm a competitor, and something I want to really step into this next coming, you know, I was going to say next season, but it's a whole wraparound now. It's a great concept they've done. I really big fan of it. But yeah, getting ready for that high level practice intensity in stuff like that. Are there any games you're kind of, you know, pushing towards, like, for anyone that wants to get ready, whether that's short game? I'm telling, for me personally, I'm thinking short game round PK and putting games. I think that's huge. I think your hitting is for me personally, my hitting's at a certain level where I can just refine it just a little bit. What are things you're kind of thinking that may help someone that is looking to play 3 months of golf straight up?
One, it's a lot of golf, and rest and maintaining your energy throughout that time is going to be critical. Two, for particularly people in Victoria who have been in lockdown, but you know, we haven't had the body of competitive golf that you would normally have. And even if you had a break, unless you've had injury, you really haven't had a year off without any competitive golf. So firstly, are your systems in place? The tournament systems, which could be different to how you inherently practice, you know, the decision making, the way you go about it. You know, I know when I was practicing, it would very quickly turn into a search for the perfect technique or defining what my swing was. Or you know, if I was at Australian Open, Australian PGA, and the equipment guys were there, it was like getting my next driver. Like, think of it like it's the biggest weeks of my year that could change my life, and I'm taking my friend out that's been with me to replacing it with a new one. Just like stupidity on the highest level. So the primary skill, if you're playing for 10 weeks out of 12, each round is going to be significantly different. Each course presents different challenges on a weekly basis, but even within that, you know, depending on where you are on the draw and what the weather is doing. So the number one skill is adaptability. And you can have the most perfect training program in a controlled environment, and you could be peeling off 100 perfect shots in a row in a certain condition where the wind is, maybe you're in a net and there's no wind and you're using a track net. And then you go out there and all of a sudden there's water down the left and the wind's coming in off the right. And it's like, I haven't dealt with that. So I'd be thinking a couple of things. Like, yes, there's all sorts of games you can do, but any game can have a different focus or a different intent. Like a simple north, south, east, west putting game could actually have the purpose not of the score that you're doing, but what's your eye control like? Or how is my focus on read? Or maybe I'm working on the time between the shots. So you know, when you play on a golf course in a tournament over 5 hours, you might hit 70 shots. So you know, you've got 300 minutes and it's of time on the course for what would that be? 30 seconds a shot at 70 shots and 35 minutes of golf. So what are you doing for the 90% of time that you're not playing golf? And have you got your strategy in place so that when you get time to play, that 30-second out of 5 minutes, are you ready to go? So yes, you can do certain scoring games that build confidence. Can I hold 100 putts in a row from this? Can I complete that task in this many? If you go through the course, for example, and you think the winning score this week might be, I don't know, 20 under par. 20 under par, let's make it 24 under par because it keeps the maths easy. That equals an average score of 6 under per round. That equals on average 1 birdie every 3 holes to give us 6. So you can set up little scoring games, for example, either on the golf course where you physically try to do it, albeit maybe it's 2-ball best ball inside 100 meters, or you can do little activities of random 4 shots. Might be 4 putts from 8 feet. If you hole all 4, it's a birdie. If you hole 3 under 4, it's a par. If you do less than that, it's a bogey. It could be hitting next 4 bunker shots, and if 4 out of 4 get inside 3 feet, it's a birdie. If 3 out of 4, it's a par, and so on. And you can actually play 18 holes of 4-shot activities, and you get a little bit more repetition because it's not like hitting lots and lots of balls, but you get lots of variation. I love the idea in a different way of practicing of starting with a notional score. So maybe you have 15 points, and around the green, you might classify the shots from easiest to hardest and assign a value. So the hardest, you might get 6 points if you get it up and down or within a certain distance. And the easiest one, you might only get 1 point. And you pick a number of balls, say 4 balls. And your objective is to play the points game. And if you get up and down, you get to reduce your score. And if you don't get up and down, it adds to your score. And the objective is to finish on 0. So you've got to plot your way through the strategy a little bit. I think you could do, so you go for the first one, you go for a 5-pointer, you get it, your score comes down to 10, you've got 3 balls left, and you've got to finish on 0. And I love stuff like that. I love stuff like going out on the golf course and only using 3 or 4 clubs, or not allowing yourself to hit any greens. You have to miss it in specific points and that sort of stuff.
Huge fan of.
I love 2-ball worst ball. But most of the games in a practice sense are, to a degree, they're rote learning. If you're on the putting green and you know your green, like the holes move, you hit 3 or 4 putts, you already know what the putt's doing. You know what the chip is doing. And the thing that tends not to get practiced and gets neglected, which is like the skill, the 2 skills, decision making. What club am I going to hit? Where am I going to do it? Do I have clarity over my decision? And then just dealing with stuff, between the shot stuff. How often do we practice with that? So you think about, I'm going to prepare for this tournament, I'm going to do all my range stuff, and I've got my distances down, but how can you put yourself in situations that A, matter, whether it's a cash game or there's consequence for you, or just by hitting a target, it means something. And B, the task is really engaging you and encouraging you to work through the problem that this shot is. It's just a series of problem-solving tasks, so that by the time you get over the ball, you've got clarity, and then deal with the consequence. Write down a score and practice is a big one. Linda, what do you think? What are you doing?
I'm trying to. I've obviously had a lot of time to think about this being in Victoria. It's actually been great, like, to really reflect on a lot of different things. Love the miss every green. That's huge on that, because when you're hitting it really well, you might hit 15 greens and you kind of lose a bit of touch because you're putting all day. It feels like that at times. But huge fan of really putting drills, huge on that. Scorecard, making it count, trying to beat it every day, making it really matter. I think that's huge. And then,
how do you make it matter to you? What do you do?
So I have a few different games. I have a distance one, so 10 to 30 feet, 3 balls every 5 feet, and then I'm just trying to shoot on the par. So 1 under is a make, par is 2 feet past, 1 foot short is a bogey. If you miss it all together, it's a double. So you got a real pace control drill. I think that's huge. I probably have to extend it a bit further just to kind of find my feel, because I haven't been on a course. And so, it feels like, I honestly, 6 months off, it feels like years. But that's one thing I'm doing for my putting. North, south, east, west stuff is massive. Love that stuff. 2 to 9 feet. Just trying to make 3 in a row. Really trying to narrow down my straight line. I'm a straight line reader. I'm not a. I can see the apex and see the ball break off into the hole, but I think we should explore that just for a sec. Straight line putters and apex readers. How do you?
Often it's referred to as linear and non-linear.
Yeah, huge. Like I've mucked around with, you see this, you get your string line out, and I like seeing straight lines. That's kind of where I kind of try to measure everything up. But I know a lot of people like to see the total break. That's a huge thing for some players, and they can't see linear, and they have to, I don't know, like people just need to decide if that's something they want to see. What do you, how do you help people decide that?
So really interesting. When I was playing, I was very much like you, a straight line, linear, line on the ball, strong marking on my putter. And in actual fact, because going back to Aimpoint, one of the groups that tend to struggle with Aimpoint is like, I can't use that point on the edge of the hole at 3 inches outside because I need to see how the ball goes in. But for me, now I'm just really open to whatever. This is my personal putting. I've practiced doing the straight line stuff like you. I can see it curving in. And as I'm letting my eyes go through the aiming process, so for me, it does start with, it's over here. But as I'm sort of tracking the line, whatever is most vivid that I can lock onto, whether it's a bit of an apex or a straight line, whatever I'm really vibing at the time, I just go with it. It's whatever gives me the comfortable. So, you might always say, I aim at 3 inches or a foot off the putter like a spot aim, but if there's nothing there, what do you aim at? So I've just got this really flexible, just whatever jumps to me, I do. Whatever is the most vivid. And it's the same now with my ball striking. Like the art of seeing a putt's really similar to the curvature of a shot, right? So as I'm walking to the shot, I'm going through my decision making. It's just, what is it that is most vivid here that I can, once I see it, you can feel it. You can feel it in your hand. You can see how it's going. So for the non-linear guys, what's really interesting is if I'm putting from here and my hole is there, and they'll start picking a point about 2/3. I like seeing the way the ball comes in typically, but as soon as the ball's coming off the face here, it's already moving by the time it gets to their point before it goes to the hole. So it's a really interesting dynamic to get them seeing and feeling aim the right way, because typically their apex, and the definition for me of the apex is the highest point of the putt. In reality, they're not seeing that because that's in the first feet off the putter before slope acts on the ball and it starts drifting, right? So the terminology is I'm actually seeing the drop point or the pathway to the hole. It's not the apex, because the apex is the highest point. It's already breaking by the time it's getting to your point. So if you open up that discussion, it's like, okay, where do you need to start the ball to go through your point? So now it's like, okay, where is the entirety of the path? And now you go back to that, typically for the apex putters, their most vivid point is in the latter part, the approach phase to the hole, whether it's just past halfway or going in. And once we've identified that, there are strategies that can help them go from a read, which is essentially a linear or straight line read, and then make them feel like they own it. And one of those options is, this is like a yardage. The amount of break is like playing from 100 yards. Now, depending on what you're feeling, you might want to play 100 yards as a really hard lob wedge. Or you might want to play that as just a little floaty 9-iron to take the spin off it. That's cool. But let's start from a really solid base. 100 yards is our constant. Now, what are you going to do to hit that shot? Or in this case, we've got a cup of break, but you can go maybe just a bit under that and go slightly firmer, or you might want to, the way you're feeling, you just might be vibing on this, dropping it in. And let's engage with whatever you're really feeling, so that over the putt, it's just you. It's not like, your caddy gives you a yardage or a read and you're going between 7 and 8 and you hit the shot. It's like, no, it's the wrong club. It's like, okay, our preparation wasn't right. We weren't locked into the target.
So being very adaptive, that sounds like the theme. Like I see, like my putting, I go linear, and then I'm still looking at the center point, the enter point still. Like I'm trying to see, like, whether it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock for a left to righter, or 3 or 4 for a right to lefter. It's like, whatever you're rolling with. I guess you could just muck around with it. You think, well, I'm not holding anything with this. I'll just switch it up.
Yeah, and going back to this preparation concept that we were talking about earlier,
Mm,
like one of the questions I'd go back to is, are you actually practicing your pre-shot routines?
mm,
Are you practicing, even at home in that room there, are you imagining certain putts, and are you doing scenario practice? Just imagining, like when you do a business plan, there's X, Y, and Z, but there's scenarios and assumptions. What if, no one thought, what if COVID comes? But the modeling required to work that out. So what if I'm coming down these last 5 holes in this wind condition and I'm leading by 3? What if I'm outside the cut line with 4 holes to go? And just taking yourself there and working through the emotion of it. How are you feeling? Now is the issue your swing? Or is it just going, I'm caught up in the score and the what if? I just need to come back to this moment. And then the secondary thing that that you can back up with that. So it's a bit like if you're sitting at a T intersection and that red car that's coming past is the negative thought or the distracting thought, my score, the cut, this, all the things that are out of your control of the cars. You could choose to stop them, open the car, get in and just get taken away, or you let it pass.
mm.
And now what do you, when you get a bit of space, what do you fill that space with? And part of that, the reason I like the putting analogy about just whatever is most vivid. So you've made your decision, you think, okay, it's this, and you're just sort of looking at it and it's like, I feel like this is going to go a bit higher, it's going to drop in a bit more. And you can feel that, you can see the way the ball's approaching. I don't see it like a move, but you just sense it. You can feel what impact's like. Like the shot almost builds for you in reaction. And same with your ball striking. So maybe it's not about this is not working, let's change it up. Maybe it's just being open to what cue is most vivid to you that unlocks that, just being totally present and in the moment, which to me is the whole essence of what a routine is. Good
Really,
decision.
really well said. Love that. Having a strategy. That's like the whole thing. Like having a strategy for if this happens. I think for a lot of right-handed golfers, it's when you're under the pump, winds off the left. That's huge. Having a left to right strategy. Right
Yeah.
hand is like the off the wind off the right. They can just let it kind of feed around it. But left to right with OB down the left and water on the right, it's a tough shot.
And think about the ramifications of not pulling that shot off. It's only one shot, but it's so much more than one shot,
Mm,
because the self-worth that we put on it, like that shot always gets me. We kind of anchor it with a negative thought, so it becomes more and more vivid the next time, the negative thoughts and the consequence. Or then you make a 6 out of nowhere, and that carries through. You be a bit more unsettled. You're not quite thinking through the next one, and you rush it, or you don't quite vibe on it the same way, and it doesn't work. Whereas it's like, you know what, I'm really not feeling this shot. Can I play a different shot? And
mm.
it might be that the pin doesn't suit you and it's over on the right. It might be it does suit you. Like usually I can play this shot really well, but it's like, I don't know, I'm just not, just being that honest with yourself. I'm not quite feeling it. All right, well, instead of hitting a fading 5 onto that back right corner, I just feel like I want to hit a hard 6. I'm just going to take it to the opening on the left, and I'll take my par that way. I'm good enough at my short game. I'm good enough at my lag putting. And it's like, actually, I feel good about that shot. Not I'm being really defensive and I'm not playing the shot like I could normally play the shots. Like, no, the one that I'm really feeling is this one. And alternatively, if it's not a pin that you would normally go for, but not because you're behind in your score or you're trying to make up, but it's like, I can really see that shot.
Mm.
Yeah, why not go with your intuition in that sense?
Jack Nicklaus I've heard stories about him with stuff like that. He didn't like the drive and just said, I'm going to go 4 iron, middle of the green and just move on with it. I think it's not a defensive move. Like play aggressively into bigger targets. That's huge. I think for high level players, it's like don't make a small target, make a bigger target and play aggressively into a great looking target for you. Like,
And tournament golf is an uncomfortable experience.
yeah, can be.
If you can pick the most comfortable shots for you, you'd have to think that come the end of the tournament, you may not win, but you're probably more likely to have a better performance than if you picked the uncomfortable shots for you. The shots that your ego suggests you should play. Or, we've got that stock standard pitch, which you could probably putt, and we decide to play that spinning low flighted lob wedge and check it up because that's what good players do, right?
Well, you're trying to balance that throughout the whole, like you've just come off a run of 3 birdies. You're thinking, oh, I can do this shot. I'm invincible. But, like golf is a very humbling sport, especially at the highest level. You just got to roll with it. You honestly just got to roll with it and have a strategy in place to deal with all the tape. I think that's huge as well. I think you've had so much timeline of tape. Like as a 15-year-old, I used to hit hooks, and I sometimes still feel like I'm going to hit a hook, and I'm like, I hit fades now, Brady. Like just literally get up there and hit it. Like it's in your mind. There's enough tape in there. You're saying before you hit that shot. I always hit that shot. Like I don't beat myself up. That's one of my strengths. I know I just kind of just try and move on with it and just get on with it and approach every shot like a new one. I think that's big for if you're trying to go further with your golf. But there's so much tape in your mind, and it's like it's catching that thought before it takes over your shot and your hands and your shoulders. You can feel it. And when the pressure's on, it's an interesting conversation for sure.
So, looking at this preparation point, what are we preparing for? And if you go through some of these scenarios and reflect on the successes that you've had, or you could view things as a failure, but if you unemotionally debrief on the results you're not happy with, there's learnings there that you can then use to shape your practice and change the outcome next time you're in a similar position. So it's not really a failure. And maybe sometimes the worst thing that can happen is you win too early because you don't go through those lessons. And ultimately, when it matters at a later stage in life in bigger events, you don't really want to have those lessons on the biggest stage. Like you're always going to get schooled. You're always going to learn. But think about what you're preparing for. What is it going to be like to finish out a tournament, to hit off in the last round when you're leading? What's it going to be like on those first 5-6 holes in the tournament you haven't played in ages? And if you give that some consideration, then maybe the training environment can be modified and changed to better prepare you for what's to come. Or after the event, if you look back and say, look, I got caught out with this, this, and this, and you reflect on what you've done in practice, which hopefully is recorded, it's like, well, of course I didn't get the results I wanted because the stuff I was doing didn't represent the field of play. The goalposts, I was playing under different rules. And then maybe that's part of in the group environment when we're training with squads. Maybe one of the tools that I have is to constantly change the rules on you and to frustrate you. It's like, but that I would have won if I did. Like, yeah, but you haven't won this time, champ. Deal with it.
Yeah, I guess that leads us into Golf Australia. I was in there for a few years. I think it was. It's all hazy, all hazy when I'm going through it all happens when you're climbing up the ranks and you kind of just it's a blur, and I'm still kind of unpacking it now. But it's great to look back on it. How different is it going into it now, Stuart Leong 2.0 into Golf Australia? How are you looking to change things? Are you changing your approach? What are you trying to add differently now, or what are you seeing different going into it?
So I guess as a backstory, for I don't know how long, 5 years, 6 years, I was contracted by Golf Australia to work with every development program and state program around the country. I also fulfilled a similar role for Golf New Zealand. I've helped out Gareth Jones in Japan on a couple of days. So loosely I say I've helped them, but not on a major degree. A little bit with Argentina and Santi, who again not very much, just a chat in a day or two. And initially, how do I answer this? My role was different in that I wasn't involved with the athletes on a day-to-day or weekly basis. It was check in, follow up on the phone or with messages and send congratulations. So it wasn't in the day-to-day delivery of a program. And the most challenging aspect was, from my perspective, how do we integrate the discussions we've had and get the coaching team to be aware of what the discussion was, B, to sit down with the player and the home coach and prioritize, is this the right thing? What order do we need to do these in? How does this fit with the program at large? So in this version, so from next year, I'll be with the VIS on a pretty regular basis. So I'm really looking forward to being more hands-on in that approach. And I guess if you've listened to the conversation today, to me, like, and I mean, a lot of the day I spend teaching people how to swing the golf club, and I thoroughly love that side of things too. But like, just what is performance, and what is your best version of this, which may not be what you find comfortable right now, but it could very much be in the essence of what you do really, really well. So just, I think the games and the activities and using the group dynamic to make really good players train in a really fun but challenging environment. And if we get the activities right, hopefully a lot of good behaviors get reinforced, but hopefully in training we get to see traits that could be worthy of discussion and could be worthy of, well, okay, now how do we modify that? And how do we modify that under pressure? So it's, yeah, I'm not sure if that answered the question, but yeah, I'm really looking forward just to watching really good golfers do their thing and to challenge them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's with like my involvement with it was like you were very involved with the review process kind of back at the beginning of your Golf Australia for your 5-6 years, and you kind of liaise with the coaches, Brad James and Matt Cutler, and you're very involved with selection criteria, whether you put your hands full, these guys need to do these things a bit better to get to the next level, and unbiased opinion, this is the real numbers and all this type of stuff. It looks like your 2.0 version of that is you've got more day to day, and that's something I guess you're really excited for, just so to see how manipulate's the wrong word, just the essence of seeing
I just get
how
involved in the culture of
yeah
can I have more impact on the fabric of our day-to-day activities, and
yeah
I've been practicing my chipping and putting. I want to go and compete with the guys.
yeah well that
I want to be
that
like that. It's like, yeah, you might be better than me. Give me a meter. Let's go compete.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The team environment, huge. Love the culture of VIS for sure. I kind of had a couple of years in there when I was over in Victoria. I got very lucky to get in there and see what it was all about. And Golf Australia is very similar. Being prepared for professional golf is very different to a team environment. How are you? Are you looking at setting these guys up individually as as human beings, because it's a lonely road at times. I think you see a lot of these VIS or ex VIS players, they got so surrounded in this culture that when they turn professional, they're on their own. They've been doing this for 5-6 years in a team environment. Is that something that needs to be addressed, or am I kind of just asking a question that doesn't need to be asked?
Well, I think clearly it does need to be asked. You're someone that is experiencing it now, and one of the greatest disappointments for me is someone that works within high performance golf, and I look at the number of really high level players that have had either a fair bit of success or never quite got themselves established. And I can relate to that because I was never at the high performance level as an amateur where you guys were, but I had to go nonetheless, and I didn't get the outcome that I wanted to. Unlike a lot of these guys, I'm still involved in golf and still involved in an area of my life that is, it's really important to me. And it's something I've invested in since I was 10. To see, and a lot of these guys and more, that once they stop playing golf, like they're lost to golf full stop. And it's almost like once we've extinguished the dream, that highest dream, and the reality of professional golf is that it's very different to what you expect. And you're possibly doing this because as a kid you got praise for being good at golf, or maybe it was your parents' dream. At the end of the day, professional golf is, or any sport, it's really rewarding at the top level, but ultimately you're uncomfortable and you make a large number of sacrifices around friends and family. And a lot of people decide that those sacrifices aren't what they want in their day-to-day lives. And that's where if we learn about the person and help to develop skills outside of golf, then if that's the decision that the player chooses to come to, they've gone in with eyes wide open, and you've trained really, really hard. But I think watching what you're doing now with study and having other interests and being a balanced individual is really important. And let's go into this dream eyes wide open, going, the reality is, there's 90 guys on the US tour, that maybe slightly more, that are comfortable, like they're not battling to keep their card, but next year they could be. How many guys in Japan are safe? 50 to 60, they change over their players, and if you're a past winner, that doesn't carry a whole lot of weight, so you've got to continually perform. In Europe, there's 80, 90 guys that are safe, and then there's another, so we're talking 150 to 200 guys that have a job. There's another maybe 200 guys that will be having a job, but they'll be battling or going down to Challenge or going down to Corn Ferry or secondary in Japan. And some of those you can make a living, and other ones are brutally hard. And the reality is, if player X, who's 20 years old and the best amateur in the country or the world, is about to turn pro, and you want to be top 50 in the world, which is getting you into every event, you've got to basically make one of those guys unemployed. That's, if you're in, they're out.
It's that cutthroat, for sure.
It's cutthroat. So the odds are against you, but that's not to say that you can't do it. Someone has to do it. It can be you. But if we understand the reality of the situation, and we train with intent and purpose, we train with no regrets. We've given it everything we can. And in my case, I don't think I trained. I know I didn't train effectively. I worked on things that I now know wouldn't have influenced my score a great deal. I was working on ball striking from 100 to 160, and I was good at it. I worked on my wedge game from 40 to 100, and I was good at it, but I neglected inside 40. I neglected inside 15 feet, and I don't know if it would have made, I know my score would have been different, and I was pretty close, so maybe it would have been different for me. But ultimately, my mentality wasn't right, and I was distracted. I was frustrated. I couldn't leave golf at the golf course. I'd be festering in my room, and my practice as a consequence was done in anger or despite myself. So looking for those things and just helping players to be really present and having real intent and knowing why they're doing something, as well as talking them through, like most of our work in high performance, there's the skill of the swing and the playing, but it's talking after the event. It's talking and dealing with the insecurities that everyone has, and it's you've been through it and are going through it, and there's lots of highs and lows, and the swing stuff and the golf stuff's the easy part. Like my first tournament in Europe was at a place called Neuchâtel on the Swiss-French border. It took me 40-something hours to get there. I booked a place on the wrong side of the town and ended up in a ski villa in summer. Just exhausted. And there wasn't a toilet in my room, so I had to go downstairs. And there's an old man with a cigarette in his mouth, hanging onto a dog, having a slash. I'm like, what am I doing? But then I got to the golf course, it was all okay.
Yeah, it's golf's, you said it before, golf's the easy part. Once you get to that level, golf is very easy. If you can keep getting a bit better every year, and everything that matters scoring wise, and that's as simply as it's said. You've got to have everything off the golf course as easy as possible to keep this machine going. That's kind of how I've kind of learned the same kind of thing over the years. It's like golf is definitely the easy part over the years.
But at the same time, having been through all of that, I look at someone like Mike Clayton, who again is at Metro, and he's had a career playing tournament golf and now architecture, but he just thoroughly loves playing golf. He thoroughly loves talking about architecture. It's stimulating and engaging for him. So I think at the high performance level, we recognize that not everyone is going to make it, but I would hope that the love of the game and the passion for it is, despite possibly being beaten around mentally and having issues around tournaments and performance, that's hard to do with, but I would hope that the love of the game would still keep people involved in the game. And maybe one of the measurements of of high performance. Obviously, the clear one is, are you producing high performance players? But maybe a sign of a good culture is that players, after finishing their career in golf for whatever reason, still have a passion for the game. And I think we have a lot to do to keep assets like you and all those others that are no longer in the game. Like, high performance would be better for having those people still involved in golf at whatever level that they choose to. Like, it'd be a better game.
Yeah, a lot of people I played amateur golf with, a lot of them don't play, and that's completely fine. You know, I think
that's their choice too. Like, I'm not saying they have to play, but
completely fine. But I think, yeah, I think it's such a shame that they don't, like, even at a social level or just at a club level, at a pennant level, at any type of level. But there's so many pressures extra around that. You know, like once you're outside of the high performance side, if you're not going the professional route, it's even just going down the club. It's the external. It's the people that are thinking, oh, is he or she making a comeback? Or surely they'll be playing pennant this year. There's so much pressure, and it's like, I do love the game, but I don't want to deal with that other stuff. And I think a lot of people, there's that pressure around that.
And I'm like, you're 30, I'm 45, and I didn't play much golf. I finished in 2004-5, but I mean, I was involved coaching and working in golf. And I'm starting to play much more now, but I'm a member of the local club here at Trentham, where I live, about an hour out of Melbourne. I'm on committee, of all things. But I've never played a club comp here, but I like going out and just playing by myself and hitting balls and exploring shots and going behind trees and bending it. And my boys are 10, 8 and turning 6 on Monday, and I like going and playing with them. And that for me is enough. Like, do I have any interest in playing a pro-am? Like, hell no. Do I have any interest in playing in a club comp? Like, not really. That's like work. But it's a friend's birthday today. He's turning 14, and he's got the golf bug in a major way. And when this podcast is over, we're going to go play golf for his birthday, and it's going to be great. So, for the guys that we're talking about, maybe it doesn't have to be immediately, because there's healing that has to go on. But just, hopefully there's enough spark there that they can, for the purity and all the original reasons that we did it, just the sheer joy of a good shot, that's still in them.
Yeah, I think about this a bunch. We're in the VIS room. It was when Scotty won the Masters in a playoff, and I just think of everyone in the room, and a lot of people that don't quite play now, or we went away together and we traveled, we played high performance stuff, and I think of those guys. I think, geez, we're all striving to be the next one to put the green jacket on, and we're right in there. And you touched on before about this healing process outside of high performance, because it can beat you up, this professional game, at times, if you don't have all your systems in place. But even if you do have them in place, golf can be just brutal at times. You put so much into it and kind of spits you out the other end, and when you least expect it, you'll be around the leaderboard, it seems, at times. And I guess that's life. It's probably the closest game to life. You kind of end up where you end up, and if you keep your head kind of screwed on. But that kind of boils down to people around you, mentors, podcasts these days, books, and luck,
right time, and being good enough to take advantage.
Well, I mean, yeah, having the opportunity. Luck is, you can kind of look at luck at a two-way street. You kind of, well, one-way street at times. You think, geez, I get all the bad luck, but you miss all the break off the tree, or you get a bounce around a bunker, or little things like that. But yeah, luck's a thing. But the opportunity and just taking it, being ready for when that opportunity comes, because we all have the opportunity to do it. It's when you take it and then just stepping into the light.
And I would have viewed myself when I was playing, I still do, as a perfectionist. But with the passing of years, and I'm not going to say wisdom, because I'm very far from that, but I would look back now and say that I applied my perfectionism in a very haphazard way. It was almost just an excuse to be mean to myself at a bad shot. But was I prepared and was ready to play every shot regardless of the situation? Well, no, not even close. Did I do everything possible to have my body in the best shape, to have my equipment completely ready for me? No. all my perfectionism was basically my ego saying, after I hit a bad shot, I wouldn't throw clubs or anything like that, but it's like, look at this, I'm better than this. I'm unhappy with that shot because I'm a better player than that. But I was just applying perfectionism in such a haphazard way. And there's so many people that play golf in high performance and other walks of life that are really similar. And if that's where I'm coming from as an athlete or a player, it's going to be very hard to maintain a love of the game, because under intense pressure or trying to play for a living and make money doing it, those sensations just get amplified and you go to a pretty unpleasant place. But if you're doing it for the right reasons and I'm as ready as possible, all I can do is control this moment. And if I'm right here in the moment, I might need a good shot, but I might not. But I'm happy that I'm in the moment.
Yeah,
If I had my time again, that's what I'd be working towards.
Yeah, it's very, very, very interesting. You see, it's like, is it that? Do I see a sports psych? Do I go and see a clinical psychologist? How do I break down my mental health? What am I doing about it? Like it's just huge. I think you just need to keep asking the question, keep looking, keep trying to stay on top of stuff, keep good stuff in your ears and watch the right stuff. Podcasts, inspiration, mentors, have to touch on that. What are you listening to? What are you reading? What's ticking your mind at the moment?
I'm currently reading a book by a former Wallaby around James Cook and Alexander. And then there's a second one that my wife's read that is sitting there on my bed as well, which is a story of when the Irish were ruled by the English and they weren't their own country. And it's about someone that in the uprising got sent to a prison in Fremantle in Australia from the UK and how they broke about. It's an amazing story. So podcasts, I travel in the car a lot of hours every week. So there's a fantastic one I listen to quite a lot called Finding Mastery, and long format, longer than this discussion, but this is getting there, I think. And he sort of unpacks world champions and business leaders into three pillars. Tell me about your formative years, then how did you get to the pinnacle, and then give me insights about what flow and high performance is like. Like Ish, I'm a mad mountain biker. It's a late passion in life, and there's one called the Downtime Podcast. And what I like about that is he gets the best in the world on, and they just talk about being good or their journey. And you're listening to the theme here. I like the journey of how did someone get good, or having someone that really knows the subject, like you, asking interesting questions. I find that fascinating. There's an Australian guy, which is called The Hidden Athlete, and he's more into like endurance sports, people that ride from the East Coast to the West Coast of America, or 24-hour races. And again, he gets like these obscure people who are just the best of the best and unpacks their journey. And I find that inspiration from people that are very good in other disciplines into golf, I find that really fascinating.
From a high performance point of view, like you take little pieces of what other people are doing. Like golf's a pretty simple sport compared to other sports that people are doing out there at the highest level. You think, well, what are they? They're doing some, like, people that run ultra marathons. I'm intrigued by stuff like that. Like you touched on the Finding Mastery podcast. I got onto that through Rich Roll. Rich Roll was like my guy.
Yeah, I listened to Rich Roll.
Yeah, went vegan 6 years ago. I'm trying to remember now. It just feels like second nature now. But he was a guy who popped up on his show. They're tight, and this whole mastery thing is a huge. It's just more than a word for me. It's something that you're trying to strive for in your life, and whether it's you washing your car or doing whatever you're doing, that's something to strive for, and that's one of the three big things for me.
Yeah, and then I guess mentors. Well, so many, from golf coaches and people within the Golf Australia network that we've spoken to, but increasingly just high quality people outside of sport. I guess within golf, the person in the last 5 years that's had the biggest influence on me and given me some really interesting opportunities would have been Kevin Kirk, who's out at the Woodlands in Houston. He coaches, at the time was coaching Patrick Reed and Vegas and a bunch of others. And I was lucky enough to be involved with all of his players in the same capacity that I work with you. And I think that insight's been so valuable. But at the club that I work at, I get to work with some really amazing people in their own right that are masters of all industries, and just being able to ask questions on them on a daily basis, outside of the lesson or in the lesson. And, I've got hundreds of mentors really at the club, and people that I know have got my back or have interest. And just, anything, I just like watching movement. Anything like movement, good movement is good movement, and there's inspiration. And like currently, I'm like really good documentaries. The F1 documentary, I think it's Drive to Survive.
Loved
what an insight into professional world of motorsport. There's 20 drivers and how intense it is for them. And you can even see, like, to be one of those drivers, you've got to be good. But if it's going pear-shaped or you're in the wrong team, the second guessing and the doubt and the pressure they get under. That notion of, I think, luck is such a big deal. You could be a great driver and go to the wrong team and it's all over.
Oh, great documentary. I was not really sure about F1. My brother he's into motorsport, loves it. He lives in England, loves it stuff. He's been telling me, seriously, since I was a teenager, I can remember him telling me to watch the F1. It's the best thing ever. Documentary comes out, I'm all in. Grace and I, we go to the market, South Melbourne market every week, and I always make sure we go down the F1 little finish line. I drive across Albert Park and really intrigued about, like I always feel like maybe I won the F1 this year, and I can see pit lane and all this cool stuff. But yeah, F1 huge if they manage to come here next year, which I think they will with COVID. Hopefully by March it'll be kind of calmed down. I'll definitely be going on a Sunday to go watch. Hopefully Ricciardo can win. That'd be awesome to see him win in Melbourne, first time. But yeah, F1, loved it.
And just two other ones quickly on that front. Like, I love The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. I'm not a massive F1 fan. I'm not a massive NBA fan. And that was right in my era, but I didn't know the outcome of that season. But just watching this insight into someone that's really good, it's just fascinating. And then I forget the name of it, but there was a documentary on the Australian cricket team post
the test. I think the test.
Thank you. Yeah. That just seeing, but I'm lucky enough to get access, not necessarily to that level of experience, but to sit in on all the sports and watch. And I just find that fascinating. I had a friend who played for Australia give my 10-year-old and one of his mates a bowling lesson a month or so ago, and just to sit and watch his interaction, to watch the boys. Like, I know nothing really about cricket, although I played it as a kid, but I know how to coach, but I don't. So just to watch that is just, and then talking to him like we're talking now, like, what did you do? Like, when it wasn't going well, what did you do? How did you deal with it? Because it's easy when it's going well, and it's all the same stuff.
Yeah, they're very easy when it's going well, and when stuff goes a bit pear-shaped, it's like, all right, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? It's very, very interesting. Stewie, we could honestly speak for hours and hours. We've spoken for an hour and a half now, I think, but
Really?
Yeah, it's honestly just flown by. I'm gonna have to have you on again, and we're gonna have to expand other subjects. But I've loved having you on immensely. I really appreciate your curiosity to everything golf and outside of golf, and how it relates to high performance and all of that stuff. You've got a few questions here, I'm sure. I'm not going to give you one question. I'm going to give you multiple questions, and hopefully that rounds out this whole episode. But it's been a blast, Stuart. I've loved it.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I've just had a blast too. It just feels like we've been chatting. Now, I do have some questions, so I'm just opening my computer up here.
Mate, completely fine. I think one question's not enough for Stuart.
I'm thinking about your audience. This podcast is for players on the journey, and what does that look like from amateur to high performance to professional?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also, having known you over the years and spoken to you at various times, I'm impressed with how thoughtful you are. I'm impressed with how diligently you go about perfecting your craft. Let's start with, because you've got a partner. If I'm correct, you've got a child as well.
No, fiance.
Fiance,
Child.
not a child yet.
Child.
But
No COVID babies or anything. We're
no, it looks
holding
like you need it. Just keep practicing in that case.
Keep practicing,
So,
yes.
But the point here is that you're at a different stage of life now than when you were the #1 amateur in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So reflecting on your maturity, what are your priorities like now? You're balancing study and you're balancing the podcast and you're balancing having a fiance. How are you viewing golf and going about preparing differently now as an adult with life experience to when you were a 19, 18, 20-year-old?
Yeah, so great question. I think as a 19-year-old, you're on your own, you're doing whatever you want, you're kind of just rolling with it. You're a teenager, you're on this quest to, get as good as you can. Obviously, things have changed a bit now. We've got a little fur baby, little Frank, our little cat.
The cat we were talking about earlier.
The cat. So yeah, things have changed, but my fiance now is the most relaxed, easiest person ever for anything. She's played to her own respect at a high level women's golf.
Right.
She understands it. She's a non-playing member at Metro, still a member there. So she gets it, which makes my life so much easier when I want to go away for a while. I think that can be tough for a lot of people playing and traveling for 20 to 30 weeks of the year, which can be very difficult. Hello.
This is Rich.
Hi, little guest appearance. Love it. Hi.
Yeah, we're speaking about Grace, who's Brady's fiance. This is my wife, Bridget, who's looking after me with coffee.
Oh, lovely. I'll have to call one in soon.
Yeah.
Beautiful. See ya. Oh, beautiful. So very, very easy having a partner who gets golf. Very easy. It makes my life so much easier. Study-wise, something I've always wanted to do. Obviously, COVID this year has been very different, and you've kind of had to reassess. I think a lot of people have had to have those tough conversations with themselves, what they're going to do next in life. I think just how virtual the world is now, regardless if golf picks up and I get on a major tour in the next couple of years, it's not going to matter. I can just take my studies, I'll take my laptop, I'll take everything with me, and I'll just do it all remotely. I think that's very easy, and a lot easier now than it might have been back in the day. And golf wise, I have had as going back to this year, just being just as crazy as it's been in Victoria, is I've had the time to think and really put a lot of things into place with where I want to go with, the podcast. Something I really enjoy doing. And I think having that enjoyment with whatever you're doing in life, you'll keep doing it regardless of the situation. I think that's huge. If you don't love something, you probably, when days are toughest to do things, you might not do it. And that's about creating stuff in life that you want to do every day is huge. And I've enjoyed studying, a bit scared going into it, to be honest with you. And just because I haven't studied in 12, 13 years. So I think that was the biggest thing for me. And I finished 3 subjects now, which has just flown by this year, and got a lot better grades than I thought I would, just because I haven't written academically or put a Gantt chart into place. Also, all these things, a mind map, all these things I'm like, all right, this is okay. I'm learning new words and using a thesaurus again to, paraphrase everything, but really, really enjoyed that. It's kind of highlighted my golf in a light that it's the other thing that I can really dive into. It's not just about my golf anymore, which is great. I feel myself more focused. I feel like I'm more present, and I'm a lot clearer with my time. And I think, as people get older, they probably need to, if you're having kids and you're managing relationships and, a job, I'm sure with golf, when it has its low time, that I'll probably have to pick up something part-time wise or something like that. It's about managing it all. And I think I have probably, I've got the greatest balance right now with that, the recipe for everything now. But yeah, it's definitely a lot different to 19 to 23 to it is now at 30.
It's really interesting for those that are watching as opposed to just listening on the podcast. If you were watching Brady then speak about the podcast and developing that and the study, you would have seen how animated, and you could see the sheer enjoyment that challenge has presented. One of the roles that I have is within a school program. We have a development program at a school called Maribyrnong. It's an amazing school with a lot of sports. There's over 10 Olympians on staff. I do the golf program there. And a lot of the juniors here, one of the discussions that they might be having with their parents is like, I got to go to golf full time. But as you've become more mature, it looks like by feeding that intellectual side of your body and actually by limiting the golf time, you're getting so much more out of your practice. And there's also a nice distraction from golf being the be all and end all. And you've got a wonderful relationship, a balance of mental stimulation. Like you can see how much you care about the people, and you can hear it in your voice when I listen to the podcast. Like you thoroughly enjoy the interaction and what the podcast is giving you. And then the study just makes you more balanced and well-rounded. So I would have to think that would help your golf.
Yeah, it's funny. It would have been 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had exams and I had a huge assignment due. Kind of, it all boiled into one, and I had a friend's bucks party. Went up to Yarrawonga, and I was balancing golf and everything. And I think it was a Wednesday, and all the assignments were due on Friday, and I had an exam, and I was going away. And it was Wednesday afternoon. I'd spent 6 or 7 hours. I started early in the morning, and it was 3 or 4 o'clock. And I just said, I need to get out of here. Like I got in the car, drove straight to PK, spent 5 hours there, went to the gym, and I came back and I felt so much better. I've never experienced anything like that. I thought I'd be just mentally, drained with everything. But I think you use your energy in something else, and it was like, okay, well, here we go. And I felt, I went to sleep, felt a lot better. And I don't know, it's just that escape. I think golf offers something that, I think a lot of sports offer a lot of things, but golf offers this. You're in nature, you're doing I guess it's like a long form walk, but you're developing your craft, and there's so many little things you can get better at. Like I find myself, I haven't practiced in 6 months, and not on grass, but you think, well, I can do this chip, and I think, oh, maybe this is different. And we've had hours and hours of lessons with different people, and I'm still trying to get what works for me. And you can see different things. But yeah, I've really enjoyed the challenge this year is kind of posed. It's the most time I've spent in one place in 15 years. Like honestly, like
Yeah.
it just.
How have you found that? Like life on tour and as a high level amateur is travel golf, even more so when you're a pro, you're away for longer stints. What has it been like for you, maybe experiencing the routine of a home life? How's that been?
Yeah, it's you as a traveling from 15, it's honestly 15 to 30, just travel every weekend. I never unpacked my suitcase until the end of the year. That was something I always done. It was like a floating suitcase. I like to, I feel kind of somewhat artistic. I leave everything out. I like having everything out. So it's not messy. It's just it's out for when I want to see it. It's all in one place.
Yeah.
And Grace has added a monitor to my Mac here now, and it's just it stimulates my visual of just, okay, everything's out. But Grace being I wouldn't say a neat freak, just liking everything in place, puts everything away, and I like everything out. So that's a challenge in itself. But like dealing out of a suitcase, I've always leave it open. I've got I've got my pants over here, and I kind of, everything floats around. So yeah, traveling around, always being on the go is something I've missed. I'm kind of really looking forward to traveling again and kind of doing it again. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy having 3 meals exactly on the same time every day for 7 days a week. That's fantastic. It's really helped my health and nutrition. If few COVID kilos here and there, but my fitness is definitely gotten a lot better because it's just the regular schedule. Honestly, the sleeping patterns, the predictability. I don't think it's forever. Like I have this itch to still want to play, and I think if you have that, you still need to keep going. I think once that kind of that light dims a bit, you probably need to do something else. But for me, obviously had all these tough questions this year, asking, do I really want to do this? What am I going to do with my study? Am I going to do something else? If you still have the itch out of all of that and you want to do it, you've got to do it. So for me, I still want to do it. But yeah, this regular life isn't too bad. But yeah, I still have an itch to get out there.
Is there anything that you can carry forward from what you've learned in COVID? Like, can you turn a really, for those of you that weren't in Melbourne, like I wasn't in Melbourne, I'm an hour out, so I didn't go to that stage 4 restriction where you're inside only an hour of exercise, 5K radius from your home and a curfew. From either the study and what you've learned there that maybe applies to professional golf or the way that you process your practice, or just the lifestyle, is there anything that you can carry forward that will help you more on the road in the years to come?
Yeah, two big things that have stood out for me is exercising, huge. Like obviously when that restrictions were crazy, it was 1 hour a day outside, which is 23 hours inside. And Grace and I couldn't shop together. It was madness, but we've obviously got the end result now where we're at with COVID. You've got to exercise every day, whether it's go for a walk, really prioritize that for your own being. You need to mix it up. You need to stimulate your body. That was one thing I noticed helps me get through that period. And 2 was, it's okay if you're having a not so good day. I think that's underrated. I think if you're having half a down day, it's okay. And that's completely fine. And it's just being, very self-aware of yourself, that just cognizant of that. It's okay. It's fine. Some days you wake up and you think, oh, I don't feel too great on my back, or my shoulder's a bit sore, and you play around with it in golf. And I think in life, it's like, I don't feel too good today, and it really affects your day. It can, especially when you're stuck inside for this time. So moving into, a COVID normal world, it's one I'm going to take into that is, do something active for 30 to an hour a day. Just something different, move your body. And if you're having half an off day or a moment, it's okay. And just really don't try push yourself further than, you really need to, because, just the downfall of that. Don't beat yourself up because, today you couldn't do it, and just, talking about this week, I did the longest day, and I didn't really do anything Tuesday, and I was thinking, what's wrong with me? And then Wednesday I tried to play golf, and I was like, geez, I can barely walk. And then yesterday I was thinking, I'm starting to come back, and it's just really reflecting on like, all right, I'm starting to feel better. And now I think it's Friday. I'm still feeling a bit like, all right, but I'm like, I think just being aware of that. That's 2 things I'll take moving into, a COVID normal world. That those 2 things will definitely help you into the other stuff. And balancing study and everything, I think that's just a life practice that I'm really excited about.
Good for you. Thank you for sharing those insights. Now, I've got a bunch more questions, so just tell me when to stop, because I'll just keep going.
Keep going. Well, let's go the official one question, and then everything else we can put into a bit of a episode 2.0. Let's do that. So yeah, so one final question, and then we'll see. We'll have to wrap it up.
So I'm going to cheat because it's a 2-part question.
Okay, done. One A.
So it's all around coaching. As I'm a coach, and we very rarely get to reflect. So, what do you look for in a coach, and how examples of how coaches have really helped is the first part of the question.
Mm-hmm.
And the second, having been through the programs, what didn't you get that, if we added it for you, would have helped you be more prepared for the future life? So the 2 parts are coaching and what helped, what do you like, what do you look for, and the second part is what was missing from the high performance stuff.
So 1A, we'll go 1A. One thing I really like in a coach, and I've seen all the state coaches over the years. I kind of bounced from, it was Rob Farley to Ross Methrall to Richie Smith, and then Craig was my end coach. He's someone I really love spending a lot of time with. Is all great coaches. Really, they all have their fickles and stuff all going on. But one thing I'm really attracted to as a coach wise, and this was the same with Little Athletics, is they're developing the person first and then the skill comes through. I think that's huge. Someone who's got the well-being of the person first and then moving into something. But I'm very curious about people who are outside of the box and are very, very different. They're not trying to be the standard person. They're looking 20 years in advance. They're very long-sighted person. They're thinking, well, if you keep doing this, you'll go into this realm. And I think the maturity of someone's coaching view is huge. I think that's why I've gravitated towards Bish. Because that hits his head on the nail right there. That's someone he is, someone I see as a mentor, that there's so much more than just trying to swing the club on plane and, putt better or hole more putts from inside 9 feet. There's so much more to him. And it's not for him. It's not a check-in, a daily, a monthly, a 2 monthly. I pick up the phone and we have a chat for an hour, and then I see him when I see him in Perth. But he's a person that's built me up over 10 years I've developed my own opinion about his coaching philosophies as a person to a golf player. Then I think it's person first, golf, and surrounding yourself with the coach in that sense. And yeah, I think that's as good as I can answer part A of that question.
Bish and I would have, like, every coach has their view of the swing, but I think, and I can't speak for him, but I feel like if I do my job properly, I'm almost redundant. You know your swing, you know what works for you, you understand. I listen to you and Curtis speak, like, the system, you know what it is. It's self-diagnosed because you've got to be able to do stuff on the fly. And like, I would hate that my players were reliant on me, but I haven't done much. I haven't prepared them.
Yeah, it's like you need that flexibility when you're playing tournament golf. It's like, well, my fade's not working today, so we're back ball draws and we're just going to roll with it. Like, that's kind of, but yeah, it's taken me 8-10 years. I thought after a couple of years that I'd figured it out, and I was clearly wrong. And now I look back on it now, well, I was so far from it. There's so many things I need to, but that's the journey. It's such a long thing, but yeah, coach, as a coach, as a coach, for him, person first, and then golfer or athlete second. I think that's huge. Develop the person, put them on the right track to, just be a good human. We need more of them in the world. That's how I see it.
Well, don't we? And you can think about life in the fishbowl on professional tours, and you can get caught up in a whole lot of stuff that really isn't that important. And if you've got good humans around you, you can kind of see when it's just BS and not waste any energy on it and save it for the stuff that matters.
Yeah, huge. And part B,
in the programs, what could we add
in the programs? I like where they're going. I really think I spoke to.
How are you perceiving the change in that case?
I like things. I like Stacey Keating is back in there. Someone that's been through the program. I think people that, we'll say, alumni of the program. So say you go Bridie McPherson, Ryan McCarthy, Nathan Holman, Todd Sennett, older guys that have been in the program. The original people were in that guinea pig stage of the Golf Australia rookie program. Let's say they're the test dummies of the first guys that were in there. You integrate them into the program now, and then you use them as a resource. You don't, I don't know, like, not like we're pushed aside, but like you use that wealth of knowledge. Let's use a college system. So people play college football and they're always a Alabama, they're always a alum. They go back to there's this value around yearly. You come to the the team review, and you have a chat about the systems. I traveled to this tour, I did this, and you really integrate that. I think the wealth of knowledge is just, it's there, the experience. You see AFL teams, the guys are still in the program, they're all in, and I think they're not quite, they could utilize it a bit better. That's something I would want to see more. That's just my opinion, but there's so many people out there that have so much to offer. There's so many people I play with now living in Victoria that I just love talking to about. And, I've had a few on the podcast, and I really just, whether it's trying to put stuff into boxes for my own thing or something I can add value for the people that are looking to go back into the system. But that's something I see. And I think their vision for the future is they're nailing it. They're trying to push people into, not push people, that's the wrong word, but use their own teams and integrate it into their system and parameters, with the tier systems and everything like that. But yeah, having ex-players and people that have been in there and using a bit of advice, or come in and a presentation, or even play golf with the guys coming through, is something that's underused. I'd say underused, and I think Clates is starting to tickle that with Ogilvy. That they're starting to use that, and they're seeing a gap in the market, or whatever it is, and for just to utilize that, because there's I played with Ogilvy at the start of the year, or kind of middle of COVID in St Andrews Beach, and it was amazing. Like I met him playing a couple of PGA Tour events, like just briefly, but to spend 4 hours with someone like that at my level, I can't imagine what that would do for someone at 15, 16. Honestly, a US Open champion who is very stoic, and his opinions are pretty much spot on with facts, because it's based around so many of them. I obviously looked up to the guy, and to play with him was just huge. And I can't imagine what that is for someone, if I played at Royal Perth or even Sun City when I went back to Perth.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think, for me, it was just, I just like playing golf and playing with kids that are really interested in it. But for someone, it's so much more that, it might get left behind, but I don't know. That's one thing I would love to see, whether it's a volunteer or you pay for something. I don't know how they want to spin it, but yeah, I think that's not utilized.
It's funny you bring that up. I've just got a recollection that in 1988, the Bicentennial Classic was at Royal Melbourne. It was the biggest event in Australia at the time. It was like $1 million purse back then. So you can imagine, it was like Jack Nicklaus played, Fred Couples played, Norman played. Yep. And for a school excursion, so I'm 13. I play golf because of Greg Norman. I'm that age. Jeff Ogilvy and I'm a bit older than Jeff, but we're that generation.
Mm.
And I'm at Royal Melbourne, to the right of the 18th where the marquees were, and Ian Baker Finch was there, and I got his signature. I've still got it on the manual for the tournament, or the brochure that comes with it. And he said, like, "Oh, you're not at school today?" I was like, "Well, we got an excursion." I didn't like school very much either. It's like, not really for me. But just that interaction with someone like that, it's like, I'm going to become a golf pro. That was because of that, like having someone like Greg Norman putting on the map to get an interest, and then that interaction, and whether that's at a tournament, or for these guys that are already established, like in a training day, or just imagine having a chipping contest with Jeff, or with you, if you're a 14, like the impact that we can have on young people is just, it's a gift that we've got. And if it sparks an interest because someone took the time to say hello and have a chip, like it's a gift that we can give to grow the game.
Absolutely. I think we're still human beings. I'm not going to class myself with Jeff or Ian Baker Finch or anything like that, but they're very approachable. And if it's so easy these days, you just DM someone. Honestly, it's like that. They read it, they don't reply, they reply, but more than likely they'll reply, and it will be positive, and you'll learn, the learnings in a chipping comp, at your home course or whatever, is just, it goes huge. Like you said, golf professional with Ian Baker Finch. Yeah.
Just seeing up close the sound, like, it's inspiring. The mannerism, the intent.
Yeah. I still remember Ernie Els and Retief Goosen came out to Lake Karrinyup when it was the Johnny Walker, I think it was. Even further was Heineken Classic at the Vines. That was kind of my first, watching Nick O'Hearn and Kevin Stadler and all that stuff. And you kind of watch it all growing up, and you think, geez, how amazing is this? And stuff that sticks with you. But yeah, that's I think that answers your questions, your two-part questions of. But
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk all day. We could honestly talk all day. I'm sure you've got some stuff to do today, but really appreciate your time. Have fun with the birthday golf lesson. I think that's the golf
No, just social. I'm
social.
going to get schooled by a 13-year-old today. 14-year-old now.
Well, amazing. I'm sure you'll have a blast. Really appreciate your time, Stewie. I'm sure this will be well received and everything. But yeah, have a happy holidays, and I'm sure we'll catch up for a game soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I'll be watching your progress over the summer with interest. And just on this front, keep doing what you're doing. I'm loving listening to your podcast, and you're making my drives much more enjoyable. So thank you.
Appreciate it.